Imagine being the last generation to know what life felt like before the internet. You played outside without GPS. You memorized phone numbers. You rented movies from video stores. And if someone called your house, everyone knew about it. But then, in the middle of your life, everything changed. The internet arrived. Mobile phones appeared. Social media took over. And suddenly, the world you grew up in no longer existed. You weren't fully Generation X. You weren't fully a millennial. You became something in between. A generation caught between two worlds. Psychologists call them Xennials. And their unique journey may have created one of the most adaptable and conflicted generations in modern history. The generation born at the perfect time, Xennials, are typically people born between 1976 and 1985. At first glance, that may not seem significant. But their childhood and adulthood happened in completely different eras. As children, they lived in an analog world. Entertainment came from television. Information came from books. Friendships happened face to face. There were no smartphones, no social media, and no endless scrolling. Then, during their teenage years and early adulthood, technology exploded. The internet transformed communication. Computers entered every workplace, and the digital revolution changed society forever. Unlike younger generations who grew up with technology, Xennials had to adapt to it, and that experience shaped their psychology in surprising ways. The last analog childhood, most Xennials experienced something that has become increasingly rare today: an unplugged childhood. When they were bored, they couldn't reach for a smartphone. They had to find something to do. They explored neighborhoods, built friendships in person, and learned patience through waiting for a favorite TV show, waiting for photos to be developed, waiting for information that couldn't be found with a quick search. While it seemed ordinary at the time, these experiences helped shape attention spans, emotional regulation, and problem-solving skills. They learned that not everything happened instantly. And that lesson stayed with them. Why Xennials became so adaptable. Few generations have been forced to reinvent themselves as often as Zen. Think about the changes they witnessed, from typewriters to laptops, from letters to emails, from CDs to streaming, from face-to-face conversations to video calls. Every decade introduced a completely new way of living. Psychologists often link repeated adaptation to resilience. The more successfully people navigate change, the less intimidating uncertainty becomes. This may explain why many Xennials are comfortable learning new technologies while still appreciating traditional ways of doing things. They became experts at adjusting, not because they wanted to, because they had to. The power of Xennial nostalgia. If you've ever met a Xennial, you've probably noticed their deep sense of nostalgia. But nostalgia isn't simply missing the past. Psychologists view it as a way of preserving identity. For Xennials, childhood represents the final years before the digital age transformed everyday life. Their memories are filled with things that younger generations never experienced: video rental stores, cassette tapes, Saturday morning cartoons, paper maps, family photo albums. These memories serve as reminders of a slower world, one that felt more predictable and less connected, yet somehow more personal. That's why nostalgia hits Xennials so strongly. They're not just remembering old objects, they're remembering an entire way of life. Xennials love technology, but they also miss life. They enjoy the convenience of smartphones, yet they remember when people gave conversations their full attention. They appreciate social media, yet they miss friendships that existed entirely offline. Because they have lived on both sides of the digital revolution, they see things differently. They understand what technology has given us, but they also understand what it may have taken away. And this dual perspective makes them uniquely aware of the psychological effects of modern life. Why Xennials matter today as artificial intelligence, automation, and virtual reality continue reshaping society. Xennials once again find themselves in the middle of another transformation. They've already survived one technological revolution. Their greatest strength isn't intelligence or experience, it's perspective. They remember where we came from. They understand where we're going. And in a world changing faster than ever before, that perspective is becoming increasingly valuable. Xennials are often called the forgotten generation. But perhaps they are the generation that understands change better than anyone else. They experienced the last truly analog childhood and the first fully digital adulthood. They grew up in one world and learned to thrive in another. And maybe that's why they never completely fit into either Generation X or Millennials. Because they were never meant to belong to just one era. They belong to two. Before you leave, think about this. If you could choose only one world, the slower analog life of the past or the hyper-connected digital life of today, which would you choose?